ahead and get started for our research colloquium. First of all, thank you so much, Dr. Ho, for joining us. So I don't know if you guys know Dr. Ho, but she is one of our associate professors here, expert in cybersecurity. Do you want to just say very briefly what your research interests are? Because this is an opportunity also for our newer students to understand where your work lies.
Right, yeah, hello. My research interest is really focused on cyber issues and cyber challenges that threatens humans in the cyberspace. So I look at problems such as deception, online deception, and recently I also look at cyberbullying problem, as well as there are fake news issues. And as I dive into these kind of issues, and I realized that the polarization issues as well, then what are the factors behind it that really creates all the societal problems. So I'm looking at all these problems and especially focus on building experiments as well as processing big data as well. And so when I process big data, I focus on the language. I extract the online chat and to understand the motivations and predilections and everything, these kind of factors behind the problem. Hey, Dr. Lucia, Dr. Chuck, everyone, and thank you for spending your time this time. So today I'm going to present one of my research line, and this line is on cyberbullying. And this research, the previous version has been presented at ISIS conference in one of the workshops and in Munich, Germany. And in the coming March, this is also going to be presented as well, the next version, into the DFRWS workshop, and that is on the digital forensics track. And so that's going to be presented in Oxford, London. I'm super excited about this research, and this is, as Marsha has mentioned, that this is the US version. The title is on predicting a predilection for cyberbullying to prevent victimization. And especially I look at the hate speech and charged language on Twitter. So this is the conventional outline. And first, let's get into the research introduction and the research questions. So basically, I personally like social media. Why? Because social media help us to be connected. But social media does have pros and cons. And one of the problems is that social media, because of its popularity, has become a channel for cyberbullying to victimize the online users, the social media users. So the cyberbullying, because of the channel of social media, has become a global problem. And there is also a issue with power imbalance situations in the cyberspace. It is because of the anonymity in online communication. The cyberbullies, they can very easily creating an account. And so that anonymity creates the ability for the bully to threaten the victim without exposing their identity. So in a way that you don't know who are reviewing your online site, right? People are connected through this space, and bullies are now create anonymous accounts on Twitter very easily. And another issue is that Twitter has been worldwide popular channel for social media. There are estimation 5 million tweets created per day. So it's a huge amount of data that has been created, and there has been 275 million users just in 2020. The Twitter has become a cyberbullying playground. It is a very convenient channel for the cyberbullying to tweet on the using Twitters. There is a cyberbullying research center, and the research center has monitoring and track the rate of cyberbullying problem. And so in 2007, it was only roughly 18% However, it has doubled in 2019. And this is statistically proven that this is a huge problem and it has increased over the last decade. My research question is, I'd like to see what is the probability based on the hate speech and charged language action cues in the Twitter environment, so we can detect the tendency of a person to become a cyberbully. Is it computationally possible to detect cyberbullying hotspot? Hotspot normally is the place where people like to get together. So it's a place where criminals, especially cyberbullies, they like to get together. How would you forecast or estimate where that hotspot is? In the cyberspace, is it possible for us to computationally identify where that hotspot is? And let's conceptualize the problem. So first, we conceptualize the problem to get the definition. And most of the research on the bullying problem has been in the children's literature. And based on Lee's research, she mentioned that cyberbullying, it sounds like very fancy term, but it is a new bottle, but old one. It is not a new phenomenon. It exists even in the physical space, in the school venues, in the middle school, high school. So in the ICT environment, ICT users utilize these ICT social medias and they exchange chats to support a couple of elements in the behavior. Number one, their behavior is repetitive. They tend to repeat what they said. If they find a target, they tend to do the same thing over and over. So there is a repetitive behavior, and also this kind of behavior is hostile. It is not very nice. It can be very mean behavior towards certain people. The person can be very nice in general, but when it comes to a specific target, the person tends to be hostile and mean behavior towards a specific individual. And these kind of behavior can also be aggressive. So it is in a way that the bullies, they tend to be aggressive towards specific individuals. So based on what we found, that there are 4 elements in the behavior displayed as well in the ICT environment. Repetition, power imbalance, because the victims never know when this bully posts something on your space, right? So you own a space on Facebook or Twitter, you have your space, and you cannot know when the bullies are posting something to threaten you. So there is the power imbalance situation. Aggression also happen in the cyberspace, and the occurrence in the cyberspace. So it occurs quite often. I tend to look at the problem from a theoretical lens, and the lens I look at is through the routine activity theory. Comes in with an understanding of the social structure, and I think that is important to be able to identify the victims and the offenders. So there is a social structure and social change involved. In the ICT environment, the routine activity theory was proposed by Cohen and Folsom. It's a very popular theory raised several decades ago. There are 3 main points in this triangular relationships. Number 1, there is a offender. The offender has to be motivated, and that is the cyberbullies. Number 2, there is a suitable target, a target that appears to be vulnerable, or can be someone you already know in the physical space, but you don't know, the target does not know who you are in the cyberspace, because you can create many different accounts to threaten the target. So the target has several characteristics to qualify them as the victims. Number 3 is the absence of guardians against the violation. Because cyberbullying is not a crime. It is not a physical crime that was conducted. It is just a threat, psychological threat against the victim. So in the cyberspace, nobody is monitoring these kind of behavior. So there is the absence of the guardians and against these kind of visible violation. And these guardians can also be categorized as parents' mediation. Parents normally do not get a chance to monitor every of the posts that happen to their children. Regulations, there's no regulation to say that, hey, you cannot do these kind of things to other people. And there's no intervention about cyberbullying situation, and certainly law enforcement agencies feel vulnerable to intervene these kind of situation because there is no physical crime happen. And also they need to know who has the tendency to do this. And in the cyberspace, on the ICT ground, it is very hard to identify where the hotspots, who are the potential offenders. So, and also there are bystanders, and I'm not going to get into detail of the bystanders' behavior. Bystanders, they sometimes know about the situation, but they will find excuses for the offender because there is no serious crime. They will just categorize, this is the normal behavior for these kind of cyberbullying. So they tend to ignore or wait until some actual evidence happens. So bystanders cannot intervene as well. So these are the problems that has been described by Cohen and Folson's routine activity theory. So now that we have a theory to support our understanding of the problem, so let's look at specifically the study framework. The study framework is very conceptualized because we look at a couple of components and want to reach to what we want to address as in our research questions. So number 1, we are looking at cyberbullies' charged language on Twitter. That is a very specific context. It's a global problem, but also what are the charged language that might hurt the victims? Because of it's the problem that all these interventions cannot happen and the law enforcement or even the parents do not really know, how to prevent that. So we are built a classifier to separate cyberbullies from non-cyberbullies. So this is a simple 0 and 1 question. Is this post having tendency to bully other people or is it not? So it's a very simple 0-1 questions. So we built a classifier to review the tweets, to review the language and the chat to make this classification. And our goal in the phase 1 is to use a logistic regression prediction model to help us confirm that cyberbullying tendency, so then we can a little bit step forward to protect our victims. And so that has been the overall first phase of the problems. And we have already kind of have a prediction model and validated. So in the future, I'm looking for some possibilities to develop this. Our next step will be to examine victims' social networks and to be able to identify individual tendencies for charged language. Think about the research impact. We can have a solution developed to help parents, help guardians, and also help law enforcement agencies to be able to identify the tendency of the cyberbullying and to identify the hotspots for cyberbullying, so they have better idea, understanding where the problem is, what are the occurrence in the cyberspace that threatens the victim's psychological mind and self-esteem and all this issue. Let's get into the next specificity of how we actually process the data. We have data collection phase, and that basically we extract tweets with certain charged language, swear words, for different data sets, right? And we remove duplicates and unformatted tweets. If you work on the big data, especially social media data, the tweets, you download and extract those. They have a lot of tweets, they are unformatted. So you gotta filter those unprocessable information out. Then we build the logistic regression model. Our model is based on the research done by Castro. He did this research in Australia, and this research was also published in a journal, so it's validated. And we reprocess their data to build our prediction model. And so we are using the model as the training model to classify tweets from cyberbullying to non-cyberbullying. And we also use the Cohen's d effect size to evaluate and validate the tendency of cyberbullying in the collected tweets. So that's just basically the process that we did this study. We don't just go, wild into this Twitter wilderness and without knowing what to collect, right? So it's also based on the research, and we have papers published to give you more citations here. But these charged language retrieval was based on previous research, but they published like 34 to 36 different charged language, and we filtered them selectively. And this is what we collect the tweets. There are 14 swear words, including the 14 words here. And we use Python to collect those. Each of the words we collect about 10,000. So we have 140,000 tweets collected in a period of 1 week. So every day we collect the tweets for all this and for 7 days altogether. There are some limitations with the data collection, so we just basically collect whatever we can. So the data collection is only limited to 7 days at random. We remove duplicates and unformatted data, and we have the first data sets collected in the fall 2019 last year. So altogether we collected 140,000 tweets. And after we delete those duplicates and unformatted data, we have 56,000 tweets roughly left. That's the first data set. We use RIWC to help us extract psychological words and inquiries, and we process and analyze the tweets to reveal the social media users' thoughts, feelings, their personalities, and motivations. So these can be surfaced out and compute and normalize the word frequency in 90 different categories extracted. So all the tweets are being categorized into 90 different categories and using RIWC default dictionary. So our dependent variable is very easy, right? Because we classified cyberbully from non-cyberbully. So it's cyberbully coded as 1, non-cyberbully coded as 0. So our independent variables are these categories. And these are the categories that we can find, and each of the categories includes lots of words. They are classified into negative emotion, for example, into anger. Some of the swear words involved with the biology, the body. You know, you tend to threaten the person with all these ingestions. You think about people do use like water, drink, and all these things to bully other people, death and swear words. So those are the 10 different categories as the independent variable. Okay, so we built the model. So we established the baseline model using the Castures 2015. And this paper, they provided their data sets. So the data sets is conversations, chat. So they analyzed their chat using RIWC 2007. And so it is incompatible with tools. We process the data sets using RIWC 2015. And based on Castru's paper, that research he did, he had human judgment. In a way, he has two coders. And the iterator reliability is 0.8. That is pretty high. That's why we decided to use the data they have, and we rebuilt our own model. We email and communicate with Casture. So their data set was reprocessed and adapted using the RIWC to rebuild the baseline model. This is our logistic regression model. This is based on Castru's the entire data set we extract, and we process the data and build the baseline model. You can see the z-value. Z-value basically means how much your data point is away from the mean, right? Our z-value are pretty much all significant except the category U and anger. We decided not to remove these two categories after we process them, and so we decided to, even their z-value are not so significant, we still remain those categories in the model as the independent variable. So we derive the coefficient estimate that's here and use this to build, this is our logistic regression model to differentiate cyberbullying as 1 from non-cyberbullying as 0. We then use the model to predict the data sets, 140,000 we collected. We use R to classify the data sets into these two categories based on the logistic regression model to decide the value that is over 0.5 as cyberbullying and the value that's below 0.5 that is non-cyberbullying. So this is a very straightforward classification. Look at the results and discussion. So based on what we discovered, all this charged language, that means the 14 different words, we're able to identify and classify them into cyberbullying, non-cyberbullying. These are the number of tweets we classified. And looking at this, we have a tendency of the person who tweeted this, they have high tendency of cyberbullying. Let's look at a couple of the words, but you can see that the tendency for someone to use the word has high tendency. These are the results, and the mean is 41% of the cyberbullying based on the first data sets. These 14 words basically gives us the probability of cyberbullying, and that's the first data set. So you can see some of the words, they have high potential to help us to predict the probability of cyberbullying. And you can see that this word goes very high. Some of the words are pretty much in the mid-range of the probability of cyberbullying from the tweets. And the coincidence for the categories are pretty high. So you can look at this category U is pretty much negligible Cohen's d value. But you look at negative emotions, anger, biology, body, they are all very large Cohen's d effect size, very large effect size. And these words, and ingestion is small, but it is still significant. It's small effect size. Health, also small, but pretty much this is a good model. Our independent variables does speak high confidence to predict cyberbullying. We compare, extract our results. This is based on the first data set. We have confidence to differentiate based on the independent variables to differentiate cyberbully from non-cyberbully. So this is extraction from the first data set. So it's very easy for us to identify based on the tweets what kind of tweets have high tendency for cyberbully and what tweets they have low tendency and zero tendency, non-cyberbully. So this is the comparison chart on the average of the word count percentage we derive for the first data sets. So cyberbully definitely have tendency to express more negative emotions. And the strong predictors of those independent variables, we derive the 10 different independent variables. These one, negative emotion, anger, biology, sexual, and swear words, these are strong predictors of predicting the tweets to have high tendency cyberbullying problem. And the weak predictor that has small Cohen's d effect size are just the health and ingestions. So this is only from a small window of the Twitter's data collected in 1 week across 7 days. Since we have time, so let's look at this portion, and this is the US portion that has not been presented elsewhere. So we get to see that we collected the second data set. This was the first data set we collected. We said, probably it is not so true if we change completely the data that is different. So we have these 14 words here, and our data sets, the second data sets, also have exactly the same estimates of what we derived. The number of cyberbully tweets versus the number of non-cyberbully tweets. And these are the cyberbully percentage. So we can see that they are pretty close, very consistent across 2 different data sets. And across 2 different data sets, orange color is the first data set. The yellow color is the second data set. Now it gives you some broad spectrum of looking at all these words we extracted, and they gives you a trend, right? Across 2 completely, totally different data sets, the probability that we found are pretty similar. They have the trends that we can find. This is the comparison of 2 different data sets. And we can also see the comparison. The first one is the baseline data. We use the first one to predict the first data sets and the second data sets. The cyberbully data sets for the first data set is 26,000. And the second data set is a little less, but the percentage is also a little less. So that's the differences between the 2 data sets that we found. And let's look at the Cohen's d effect size across 2 different data sets. So you saw earlier, this was the first data set, right? We identified that U and I think U is negligible. It's pretty much like no effect. But negative emotion, anger, biology, body, sexual language, not death, but swear words. All these categories have the large effect size. For the first data set, it represents here, and it maps to the second completely different data set. Also speaks the same thing. So that means our prediction model is pretty consistent in predicting the probability of cyberbullying. This is the comparison of cyberbullying versus non-cyberbullying across two different data sets. You can see that cyberbullying all appears to be on top the solid line, whereas non-cyberbullying across two different data sets, you see that they are very low in a way that in their tweets, they don't use this kind of language. So that's how we're able to differentiate, separate bully from non-bully tendency in the cyberspace. So the results of the across two different data sets, we're able to conclude that based on the Cohen's d effect size, these independent variables can speak highly to predict the cyberbullying tendency in a way that we can identify the hotspots for cyberbullying to gather together, in the Twitter background. And the small Cohen's d effect size are these two. So this across two different data sets, they are consistent. So we derive consistent results. The conclusion, probability of cyberbullying, they tend to use charged language very, very often and to make victims quite uncomfortable. If the victims are young in age, it creates psychological issues with the young adults. It causes them to attempt suicide. It is important, therefore, for us to build the prediction model. It is in a way to help the guardians, parental agencies, and law enforcement to mitigate the situation better and to probably regulate and guide the people who tend to speak charged language. And this is our validated prediction model. The limitation of this research is that we extract the data. We build our research based on cast-choose data sets. We don't have the judgment to review those tweets. But that requires us into hiring the human judgments to evaluate the tweets. And we have large data sets, so we can only use the data sets and different sets of data sets to validate the results. And we thank Florida Center for Cybersecurity on their capacity building grants. And this is the grant number. It lasts us 2 years to work on this, and we're super happy and grateful for their support on this research. So I welcome your questions.
Yeah, I have this.
Yes.
It's a great study. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
And for the words, according to your result, I wonder, would they change according to news? For example, if there is a corruption, people are mostly talking on the Twitter, maybe they could be more tended to use different words. Or if, for example, the case right now is virus in China or something, people are talking about it. So, and I saw your data sets. These are kind of close to each other when you collected the data. So that could be the reason of the popular news in that time, or maybe collecting the data in totally different times could change the results.
Yeah, exactly. Great question. I'm also calling for potential collaborators, and so we can replicate this and recollect the data sets following this methodology, and so we can use the third data set to validate the prediction model. And that's a very important step. And also, with the large big data sets, it's really hard to have human judgment to go through each of the tweets. So I assume it potentially have the problem of classifying the wrong tweets into the wrong categories. So we just have to step back and look at the large data sets and do as much as we can to increase the probability of our prediction.
Thank you.
Great. Yes, Nia.
So your analysis was based on a word level, not really individual level. So it's based entirely on word counts. But you mentioned before that when the concept of bullying is that it's individual to individual. So how are you able to, like for example, the word die? I mean, I could say my dog died. You know what I mean? So how do you know that that's a bad word in a particular context? It's not really contextualized.
Right, exactly. So it is important that we did the first phase of the study. We collected data, processed the data, and we analyzed the data using a simple logistical regression model to build this and validate this model. So the next phase, if I get to collaborate with some of you to write a research grant, we can build this model to start examine individual social network, the victim's social network, and so we can predict. I think it's a worthy direction for us to look at the cyberbullying. We are able to do that prediction, and I think this is the next step that we want to move forward. Wait.
Yeah, sorry, because I have to leave.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Like my question was similar to Dr. Lucius, but you said that you were able to predict some of those personality, like discern between saint and sinner,
Yes.
right? In that sense, but I don't know in terms of cyberbullying if you don't understand how the message is received, if then can it be classified as cyberbullying or not? This, regardless of what is said on the actual tweet, it's more how it was received that makes it bullying, I suppose.
Right, yeah, that's very true. According to the routine activity theory, here are the different stakeholders in the triangular. So you not only have a motivated bully, the offender, but also a target, a certain language spoken out to you and to other individuals that might have different effect on different individuals. But according to that theory, there are 4 elements we're looking at. The repetition toward a specific target, and also the mean behavior, right? And the occurrence, and I think the imbalance situation. So those factors can also be further exams to confirm that if this behavior is spoken frequently to one individual than the other, and these should also be taken into consideration. So that's a great point.
And then when you say the imbalance, you mean like the power differential that you? But I think you identify the power differential as because there is a power imbalance, I suppose, in the real world, physically, right? That could be very easily understood, right? But in the cyberspace, the power difference, because everybody as a user would be in a level playing field somewhat, right?
Yes.
And then I understand that there can be some power differentials in terms of like somebody that's older pretending to be younger and luring a child or something like that. But I don't know how you can measure that there was actually a power differential and then that tweet in fact is used in a sense to bully another, right? Just by the words themselves, because those words, I think, like young people use those words just to like communicate, like,
Right, yeah, I think that's a great point. The reason we adopted that theory is that it specifically has an understanding of the social structure and the social change. So the social structure in the Twitter environment is not what as we think. as our social structure in the physical environment. In the cyberspace, that social structure is not very formed. So in the cyberspace, everybody is pretty much represented by an account.
Right.
Right. So in that situation, the reputation you have to take into other considerations, and also the power imbalance part. The target is in a visible, not changing account name. However, all the posts happening into that account is from all different users.
So you could infer that because you have multiple users
Yes.
targeting one individual and using
Yes.
similar language, that it's actually one person.
Yes. Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
makes sense.
that's what I was getting at, it's not just a word count, it's a word
Yeah.
count against a specific individual.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, but what concerns me is kind of the so what. So just as a real down-to-earth example,
Yes.
my neighbor has a 16-year-old daughter who has been brutally cyberbullied. So the good news from your research is you can definitely verify that these tweets are cyberbullying, okay? And so when she goes to school and she says, I've been cyberbullied, blah, 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 then it's up to the school and the school's regulations or policies to be able to do something about it, right?
Yes.
Because there are no, as you pointed out in the beginning,
Right.
there is no law that says cyberbullying. In fact, Twitter won't even police its own tweets
Right. Yes.
from a policy perspective.
Right.
So, what do we do? And oh, by the way, so when this young lady went to school and everything, and school did jump on a couple of people who were stupid enough to, use their real account, right? So what immediately happened were all the tweets came in as fake or anonymous, but kept coming in.
Yes.
So if you were this girl, she doesn't need to know to verify that these tweets are cyberbullying.
Yeah.
What she needs to do and wants to do is, how do I get this to stop? And what's my remedy? What do I do now? Okay? And I'm wondering what your thinking is there.
Yes, it definitely has a lot more for us to think about as parents and also as the law enforcement agencies. There should be a lot of research done on help the victims to recover from this process.
Well, not only recover, but to stop it.
Right. So there is an investigation process going on that requires a warrant. So the law enforcement agencies, when I think the most of the problem for the law enforcement agencies or the school counseling is that they have no way to really know if this is happening or not. So we want to present a solution for them to kind of get alerted that this is something that is going on, and so they can take further steps to work with the law enforcement agencies to really stop that. But maybe in the future the policy will be changed. That's a great question.
Yeah, well, so let me follow up with the policy, because
Yes.
ultimately, there's a whole slew, as you won't be surprised me saying this, of policy-related issues here,
Yeah,
right?
exactly, yes.
And under, for example, the Children's Internet Protection Act, all right? You could make a case that cyberbullying is against the law.
Right.
You could,
Yes.
okay? But Twitter, Facebook, all of these basically refuse to instigate policies
Yes.
that would do anything close to what you're talking about. In other words, your algorithm could be used by some of these platforms
Yes.
to ferret out social bullying so it never even gets to little Angela or whoever.
To stop it at its root.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I think, I'm sorry to always be thinking policy here,
Well, that's very, very important. You know, without the policy folks there, these kind of solutions cannot be implemented.
Yeah, so what do we have to do? I mean, there are policy, regulatory things that Congress could do
Yes.
and say, well, you must have to Twitter or Facebook or wherever. You must institute algorithms that identify cyberbullying, which you have proven can be done,
Right.
right?
Yes.
And take them down before they're sent,
Right.
right? Isn't that a
Yes.
logical conclusion here?
Yes. So I am looking for collaborations to help to move this research. This is the initial study we conducted for 1 year. So I'm looking for the collaborations to move this, not only the awareness to the public, but also to get the research grant, and so we can influence the policymakers to look at this very, very important problems. And there is a solution to help us move further to protect our children's and young kids, and also the general populace, right? We need protections, but I think what is lacking is that nobody has, with these oceans of data, nobody has any idea to even know how to begin.
Right.
So I think we present.
No, I applaud what you're doing. It's fantastic research. I'm just thinking of the tail end of this.
Right.
Because I'm one of those guys that I'd like to see research that really makes a difference. And listening to my neighbor talk about what his daughter has gone through
Right.
is
Yes.
unbelievable.
Yes.
just
that's
unbelievable.
Is she in high school or middle
Yeah,
school?
high school.
Yes.
And actually, at the risk of being politically incorrect, we have a president that does cyberbullying every day of his life,
Yes.
which suggests
Graciously.
that it's okay. Okay, so we have people in extreme positions of power who think cyberbullying is the norm. It's the new okay.
No, it's never.
But there you have it.
Right.
And that might also help explain why I believe you said that the extent of cyberbullying continues to increase.
Right, yes.
Right?
Yes, it does continue to increase, and that's why recently, this recent 1 year, I started to make the connection of the dots of the research
Yeah.
that I do.
But I gotta go back and say,
Right.
the issue, I believe, is at the social platform level,
Yes.
okay?
Yeah.
Because we got tweets and Facebook ads going out that are complete, total lies politically.
Yes,
And they, Mark, our friend, Mr. Zuckerberg,
right,
refuses to do anything about it.
exactly. Yes.
So my view of this is, thank God you're doing this, it's great stuff. But we really need to mobilize on a political front to control these social platforms. They are able to stop some of this and
Right.
won't.
Right.
And hiding under First Amendment is bullshit.
Yes, yes. So we, I really am very grateful for the activists. They are moving us, make our voice heard and to influence the policymaker. And so I think more research needs to be done, and also the research that is taking actions that needs to get more notice, so we can basically research can contribute
Yeah,
to the
absolutely.
practice, and that needs to
But
be
we have the
noticed.
problem right here in Leon County school system.
Oh.
They have no clue what to do about this, except if the people are stupid enough to use their own names. Okay?
Yeah.
And all you do is get caught once using your own name, and then you use an anonymizer.
Yes, so these are just forever loop of problems. They're interconnected, and so
And the damage has been done.
And right,
Right.
she's devastated,
right.
okay? And how she will recover from that, I frankly don't know. And the parents are beside themselves, right?
Yes.
So I'm just saying, I applaud. It's interesting, great stuff you're doing. We need to look on the backside of it too.
Right.
And this person went to a school board meeting and said, what are you doing about it? And basically the answer was, well, we don't know what to do. There's nothing to do. All they can do is react to when it has already occurred, and if people are stupid enough to use their own name, which oftentimes they are stupid enough to do use their own name.
Yeah,
But that's a reactive mode instead of a
Proactive.
proactive mode.
yes.
Yeah.
So I think this research can help the policymaker to make
Absolutely.
proactive interventions in these situations, and hopefully we together can move this research forward to really connect it and support the policymaker and also our practice.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys. Right on time.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
Did you pause?
Oh, pause?